The little town of Red Creek, Montana, had never been short on gossip. Every sunrise brought new rumors to the general store, and every sunset carried whispered stories across the wooden sidewalks. But no family attracted more attention than the Carters. Everyone admired the older sister, Victoria Carter. She was graceful, fashionable, and known throughout the county for her beauty. Mothers hoped their daughters would become like her, and wealthy ranchers competed for a chance to court her. Standing quietly behind Victoria, however, was her younger sister Hannah. While Victoria received compliments wherever she went, Hannah received only pity or worse, cruel silence. After surviving a terrible barn fire as a child, faint scars remained along one side of her face and neck. Though the scars never stole her kindness or gentle smile, they were enough for the town to label her as the unfortunate sister. Invitations never included Hannah. Young men rarely looked in her direction. Even at church socials, she often stood alone while everyone else danced beneath the lanterns. She had long accepted that some dreams simply were not meant for people like her. Life continued that way until the day Jacob Walker rode into Red Creek. At 35 years old, Jacob owned one of the largest cattle ranches in Montana. Thousands of acres stretched beneath his name, and his reputation was built not only on wealth but also on honesty. Ranch hands respected him because he worked beside them instead of ordering them around. Widows trusted him because he quietly paid their debts without seeking praise. Children ran to greet him whenever he entered town because he never forgot to carry peppermint candies in his saddlebag. Naturally, the entire town assumed Jacob had come searching for a wife. Before noon, mothers were adjusting their daughters' dresses, and fathers were discussing which family might soon become connected to the richest cowboy in the territory. Victoria noticed him immediately. She greeted Jacob with her brightest smile during the Saturday market, confident that another wealthy rancher had finally arrived to admire her. They exchanged polite conversation while curious townspeople secretly watched from nearby storefronts. Hannah, meanwhile, quietly helped an elderly widow gather vegetables that had spilled across the dirt road after her basket broke. She never realized Jacob had been watching from across the street. While everyone else admired Victoria's appearance, Jacob noticed something different. He saw Hannah kneeling in the dust without hesitation, comforting the frightened old woman before worrying about ruining her own dress. She expected nothing in return. Her kindness came naturally. Over the following weeks, Jacob found reasons to visit town more often. Strangely, every visit seemed to end with another conversation, not with Victoria, but with Hannah. Sometimes he found her reading stories to children outside the church. Other days she was delivering fresh bread to lonely neighbors or helping injured ranch workers without asking for payment. Every act revealed a heart far more beautiful than appearances could ever show. Hannah, however, remained cautious. She believed Jacob was simply being polite. Men had been kind before, but only out of sympathy. She had learned never to mistake kindness for genuine affection. The town, however, began noticing. Whispered conversations spread through every street. Some insisted Jacob was secretly preparing to propose to Victoria and merely speaking with Hannah out of courtesy. Others laughed at the impossible, thought that Montana's richest cowboy could ever choose the forgotten sister. Even Victoria herself believed there was no competition. She continued planning elaborate dinners and wearing her finest dresses whenever Jacob came to town, convinced it was only a matter of time before he asked for her hand. Then came the annual harvest festival, where nearly every family gathered beneath strings of lanterns in the town square. Music filled the evening air as couples danced while children laughed nearby. Victoria stood proudly in a beautiful cream-colored gown, expecting Jacob to invite her to the opening dance before everyone. Instead, Jacob calmly walked past the crowd. He tipped his hat politely to Victoria but never stopped. Every eye followed him until he reached the edge of the square, where Hannah quietly watched the celebration. Believing no one had noticed she was there, Jacob smiled warmly and extended his hand. "Miss Hannah," he said gently, "would you honor me with this dance?" The music seemed to stop, though the fiddles continued playing. Conversations fell silent. Victoria's confident smile disappeared. Gasps spread across the crowd as neighbors stared in disbelief. Hannah looked around, certain he must have been speaking to someone else. "Me," she whispered. Jacob nodded with complete certainty. You, as Hannah slowly placed her trembling hand into his. The richest cowboy in Montana led the town's forgotten daughter onto the dance floor, leaving the entire town stunned to speak. When Jacob Walker led Hannah onto the dance floor, the entire harvest festival seemed to hold its breath. The cheerful music continued, but no one was dancing anymore. Every pair of eyes followed the richest cowboy in Montana as he smiled at the woman most people had ignored for years. Hannah's hands trembled with uncertainty. She had never imagined she would be standing in the center of the town square, much less dancing with the man every young woman secretly admired. Jacob noticed her nervousness and spoke softly so only she could hear. You don't have to hide anymore. Those simple words touched a place in Hannah's heart that years of loneliness had nearly closed forever. As they danced beneath the glowing lanterns, she forgot about the whispers surrounding them. For the first time since childhood, she felt seen, not for the scars on her face, but for the person she truly was. The crowd, however, reacted very differently. Groups of townspeople whispered among themselves, unable to understand Jacob's choice. Some insisted he was making a mistake. Others claimed it was merely an act of charity. Victoria stood frozen near the edge of the dance floor, embarrassed and angry. She had spent years believing beauty guaranteed happiness, yet in a single moment everything she expected had disappeared. She could not understand why Jacob had chosen Hannah instead of her. Over the following weeks, Jacob visited Hannah almost every day. They rode horseback through the rolling Montana hills, shared quiet conversations beside the river, and laughed together while helping families repair fences after a powerful storm. Hannah slowly realized Jacob never looked at her scars. He listened to her ideas, admired her kindness, and respected her strength. She discovered that real love grows from character, not appearance. One afternoon, an unexpected crisis changed everything. A frightened horse broke free near the town square, pulling a wagon carrying two small children. Panic spread instantly as people ran in every direction. Without hesitation, Hannah rushed into the road. She managed to pull the terrified children safely away, just before the wagon crashed into a wooden fence. In doing so, she injured her shoulder, but she never thought about herself. The entire town watched in stunned silence. The woman they had called the Outcast sister had risked her own safety to save two innocent lives. Jacob hurried to her side, gently helping her to her feet. You always think of others before yourself, he said proudly. For the first time, the townspeople began looking at Hannah differently. They no longer saw the scars. They saw courage, compassion, and quiet strength. Even those who had once ignored her now thanked her with sincere respect. Victoria stood nearby, tears filling her eyes. She finally understood that she had spent years seeking admiration while Hannah had spent those same years serving others. That evening, Victoria walked to her sister and wrapped her in a heartfelt embrace. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have stood beside you instead of letting you stand alone. Hannah smiled warmly and hugged her back. You've always been my sister, she replied. It's never too late. Months later, on a peaceful autumn evening beneath a giant oak tree overlooking Jacob's ranch, he asked Hannah to walk with him. The setting sun painted the Montana sky in brilliant shades of gold and crimson. Jacob reached into his pocket and carefully removed a small velvet box. Hannah, he said, this town judged you by what they could see. I chose you because of everything they couldn't. Your kindness has changed this community. Your courage has inspired me every day, and your heart has become the greatest blessing in my life. He knelt on one knee. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Hannah's face, not tears of sadness this time, but of overwhelming joy. Yes, she whispered. Their wedding became the biggest celebration Red Creek had ever seen. The same townspeople who once overlooked Hannah now filled the church to celebrate her happiness. Children scattered wildflowers along the aisle. Neighbors decorated the streets, and even travelers passing through stopped to witness the joyful occasion. Years later, people no longer remembered Hannah as the outcast sister. They remembered her as the woman whose kindness transformed an entire town. Young parents told their children her story, reminding them never to judge someone by appearance, because the most beautiful hearts are often hidden beneath life's hardest trials. As for Jacob, whenever someone asked why he had chosen Hannah, he simply smiled and answered, I didn't choose the woman everyone admired. I chose the woman who made everyone else's life better. And from that day forward, Red Creek learned a lesson it would never forget. True beauty is not found in a face, it is found in a heart that never stops loving. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional Old West stories filled with faith, hope, courage, and unforgettable frontier adventures. Your support helps bring a new story to life every week.